Good evening. There's always a little delay when we go on Facebook Live. So, good evening. It is October 3rd, 2025, and welcome to Turning to God. As we talked about in our welcome or introductory video, this group or this class discussion, however you'd like to view it, is really intended for people that are trying to understand or explore their faith, right? As I've talked to a lot of people and over the years, a lot of people will say, "Well, I believe in a God, but not a specific God," or I'm very spiritual, or I'm religious, but not to a particular degree. And that's all fine. That's not a problem. That this class is designed to give you information. It's designed to lead you to some facts. It's designed to give you some resources to look at and to do some exploration on yourself. I will tell you, as I said in the introductory video, one of the things that is really driving this for me and my wife Kelly has been, we currently teach other classes on the Bible. We cover entire books of the Bible. We've done Daniel, Zechariah, Revelation, and we're about ready to do Ezekiel. And I would say that those are wonderful classes for people that have a fundamental understanding or belief in the Bible and want to understand it more deeply. Those are great classes for that. So I would equate it to sort of having steak versus something a little easier to digest when you're brand new. So if you've just become a Christian, a believer in Jesus Christ, or you're exploring your faith and want to have some other things that to consider and think about, that's what this class is about. And of course, I welcome others, to the class that have issues or topics or things of discussion. But I want you to know my heart's desire is to try to provide information for the person that I see on Facebook or on X or different formats that's saying, I'm thinking that I want to understand this a little bit better. And so a lot of times people will go out and start researching it or maybe even go to AI. I personally use ChatGPT for certain business applications in my work. I haven't found it to be as accurate and helpful in my faith area or topics, to be honest. But once again, this is a class designed to help you to understand some basics. So, with that said, let's start with, this class is about Bible facts. And we're going to break this down into 3 categories. And there's a handout that is attached to this video that you're welcome to look at, print, do whatever you'd like. But we're going to cover 3 areas. Area number 1 are just Bible facts, right? Things that you need to know. Number 2 is we're going to talk about the popular versions of the Bible because there are different versions, and I want to explain that a little bit to you. And then I want to talk about some of the common publishing styles. Because what happens is when you get to a place, let's say I was chatting with this one person on X, and they're like, "Oh, I'm so excited! My Bible arrived," and then everybody kind of piled on her and said, "Oh, it's the wrong Bible. You got the wrong one." Blah 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 blah. Okay, so we're gonna talk about that, and I'm going to share with you some things to consider and some things to be careful of because there are a lot of choices when it comes to the Bible. So let's cover some pretty true facts about the Bible first. It is 66 books in length, right? 66 different books. Many parts of the Bible are actually letters that were written to different churches, and this is particularly true in the New Testament. And some of them are written in psalms, some are written in poems, some are written, in pearls of wisdom, if you will, or statements of wisdom. And then some are letters, and some are fact based, based upon this is what went on, a testament of what happened. Some of them are prophetic in nature. And so in the Old Testament, there are 39 books. And in the New Testament, there are 27 books. It's been written over a period of 1,500 years. There's been about 40 different authors. It was originally written in Hebrew, if you can imagine, the Old Testament in particular, Aramaic for some of it, and then Greek for most of the New Testament. And then all of those were pulled together and have been translated into literally hundreds of languages across the world as we speak. Now, one of the things that we want to be mindful of is people will try to have opinions and thoughts and comments and speak with great authority about different components of the Bible. For those of us that are Christians, people that believe in God the Father, the Son, Jesus Christ, who came to earth and was sacrificed by the Father on purpose for our sins, and we'll talk about that in a later session. The Bible is really the inspired Word of God. Okay? It is the thing that helps guide us in what we do. It provides us a center. It provides us guidance. It tells us what is ahead in many regards of a broad brush nature, not specifically as far as what's going to happen on October 7th. It doesn't do that, of course. And so the Bible is made up of about a third of what they call prophecy, meaning at the time that it was written, it was prophetic. It was talking about what would happen in the future. Now, as time has gone by, some of that has already passed, and that's what gives the Bible so much validity, is because everything that the Bible has predicted would happen, if that time has gone by, it's happened, right? So, for example, I'm teaching a class on Zechariah right now that was written many hundreds, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, and it very clearly depicted Alexander the Great and what would happen, and all the wars and major empires. And at the time, that was all before Alexander. I mean, he wasn't even born, and that all became fulfilled. And so the Bible validates itself by having this prophecy and the accuracy of what's already happened. Now, there is still many pieces of the Bible that are still prophecy that have not been fulfilled. And when you get a greater understanding about the Bible and some of the basics of what it is to be a Bible-believing person, then you'll be enthused to learn about those things. But I have to be honest right now, I'm going to focus on some of the basics so that you get a more rooted understanding of what is the Bible and how it works. And then we can build on that. And we will throughout this class. So the oldest book of the Bible is one that people use oftentimes as a cliche, and that you'll hear the statement, "Oh my goodness, he has the patience of Job." You may know a little bit about the story of Job, but the book of Job is the oldest book of the Bible, and it was believed to be written by Moses, but that's not 100% known. And that's one thing about the Bible, is a lot of times the author will state who they are, and sometimes they don't. Or in the case of like Psalms or Proverbs, which is in the Old Testament, it's a collection of different writers, right? And sometimes we know who wrote it, and sometimes they can guess from how they wrote it, and then sometimes we don't know at all, or it's speculation. So that's kind of a main piece. So the main sections of the Bible then are kind of broken into two groups. There's the Old Testament, and then there's the New Testament. And what is the pivot between that is Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ, during his time on earth, was the pivotal time for anything then to be written after his time here is the New Testament. So when you start reading the New Testament, it has everything to do about Jesus Christ's time here on earth, and then what are the sequence of things and what happened afterward. So for example, when Jesus came to earth and was born and raised here and would speak of things of the Bible, he only preached from the Old Testament, right? I mean, that was it. That's all there was. There was no New Testament. The New Testament wasn't even started really to be written until after Jesus was crucified. Okay. So, excuse me. So that's one of the things to understand about the Bible: Old Testament, New Testament. Now, a lot of people will say, "Well, I only want to read the New Testament." Well, honestly, having read both repeatedly, I understand. I get it. The New Testament can be easier to read. It can be a little more current to our thinking and those kinds of things. But the Old Testament has some very important pieces in it. And so as we go through discussions, you'll learn about some of those. Our next class, we'll be talking about summaries of each one of the books. And so you can learn more about that. But I do understand that people obviously want to know, the difference. Now, one of the things that comes up often, I get this so many times from people, is, "Tony, okay, I got my Bible," or "My grandma gave me a Bible," or whatever. Great. Where do I start? Well, the old cliche, "start in the beginning," is a wonderful phrase, and Genesis is, of course, where the Bible begins, and it starts with "in the beginning," right? It's a wonderful story. It's factual. It does help spell out some of how things began. But if you were trying to understand how your faith and how Jesus Christ is involved, and what do you really believe in or don't believe in, I would tell you that I believe there are some parts of the Bible that lend themselves to a little better understanding of some things. And we'll actually have a class that we'll be teaching here in a couple days about where you should start. But I'm going to cheat and give you my sort of early list. I believe that the place that you should consider starting is in Proverbs. It's in the Old Testament. It's a nice sort of layout of some of the best thinking about certain things. It's not a hard read, and it will start to give you a flavor and an idea of God and what he does and how he does it, and it'll help you. From there, what I encourage you to do is go to the New Testament and just start in the beginning and go down. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and then continuing down, Acts, John. And I think there's some good reading there that will help you then to see what kind of went on during Jesus's time here on earth. Okay, and that will be a good way of going. There are books of the Bible that are very popular, people have heard of, and then there are books of the Bible that I will tell you, even for those of us that have been Christians for a long time, we've read it. It's been a long time ago. I haven't read it again since, because they just, where I'm at in my walk, they're not as fitting for my thinking right now or where I'm growing. And so I want you to know, as you, just like anything in life, I don't care if you're a windsurfer or you're an Xbox player or PlayStation, whatever, your skills just build, as time goes by. And the same thing is true in your faith. Gosh, I'd like to think that there'd be a time in my life where I could get to a place where I go, okay, yeah, no, I really got it. I'm good. I'm 100%. Folks, I got to tell you, I'm an old man now, and I, I'm not seeing that day coming. It's not a criticism. It's actually fun. It's actually exciting because I feel as though I still have things to learn. And so, what I'm hoping to do through this class is to provide you with some thoughts and an outlet for that to unfold and for you to have a better sense of what you think about. When it comes to reading the Bible, it's sort of like reading a poem or playing music. That would be what I would choose. There are certain songs that when I listen to the words and the melody and the music, they really capture me. And they mean something to me. They spark an emotion in me. They spark a feeling. Well, the same is true when I'm reading certain things, right? If I read a certain poem or I read something that strikes me in a certain way, I'm there's lots of books that I enjoy that are very secular, popular books. I've always loved the Harry Potter series. So when I'd read Harry Potter, I was like, I'm into it, right? I can't put it down. And when something's about ready to happen, I'm all tied up in it. Well, can I open Harry Potter and just read the words? And then Harry said to Hermione, blah, blah, blah. Can I just, sure, and I'm not going to get as much out of it. The same thing is true of the Bible. If you just functionally go through and read the words, you're probably going to get what you put into it. What I would share with you is that when I sit down to read the Bible, I rarely read more than 2 chapters at a time. And the reason why is because normally when I'm reading it, God whispers to me in a way that what I'm reading helps me either process an issue I'm going through or a problem I'm having or a different challenge. And you know what? My life's no different than yours. I have challenges. I have issues. I have concerns. I have worries. I have a black belt in worry. I come from a long, prestigious family line of worriers. And, it hit me just like it hit them. And so when I work on reading the Bible, I'm really looking for God to help me see what it is that He wants me to see. But you have to read it in a light and in a manner and in a mindset that allows that to happen. But if you're just reading the words, you're probably not going to get as much out of it as God would intend for you. So what I would say is when you go to read the Bible, quality over quantity. Okay, that would be my. I'd rather you take 3 verses and read that really well and really understand that than they read 3 chapters or 3 books, right? Because it's too much to take in. And as we go through things, you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, so one of the things, as I said, that came up in a discussion online and on X was this poor lady bought a new Bible, was very excited about it, and people immediately started saying, "Oh my gosh, you bought the wrong Bible." Okay, so let's cover a controversial topic. Are there right Bibles and are there wrong Bibles? My opinion is the answer to that question is yes, there are right Bibles and wrong Bibles. I'm just going to share that with you. Now, what do I mean by that? I do not know. I'd have to research this. It might be interesting. But I believe that there are probably literally hundreds of different versions of what someone might call the Bible. If it's not hundreds, it's, let's say, 100, right? What I'm going to talk to you about in this paper, this handout that we have on the site, is what the most common, the most well regarded, the most validated versions, right, of the Bible are. So let me talk about those, and then let me talk about how it can go astray, okay? So the most popular versions, the most popular that you've heard about, is the 1611, the year 1611, when King James decided to have the Bible translated from the Greek and all that into the King James Version. And if you've ever seen a King James Version Bible, if you're old like me, you've seen it, but your grandparents had it, and it was thou and thee and thus and thoueth, canteth, doeth, thiseth. And if you ever heard that growing up, you're just like, oh boy, what if are they sayingeth? It's like, what? And so, but that's how they wrote and that's how they spoke in 1611, right? It's great for movies, but it's terrible for reading. And so the King James Version is considered, if you will, the gold standard in accuracy of translation of the Bible. Over time, what's happened is different Bible translations then have come down. Some have taken the idea of, well, no, we're going to take out the thee and the thou and truly just translate it into new language, right? That's one option. Some have said, no, I'm going to take the general thought that they're trying to cover and I'm going to translate it because of a thought or what they must have been thinking rather than word for word or context for context. And so that birthed, some versions that really, frankly, altered the meaning of the original biblical language. So what I'm going to share with you on this handout is what are considered to be sort of the 7 standard versions of the Bible that are generally well regarded. I will try to give you a little bit of flavor of where it sort of deviates, okay? So the King James Version, right? 1611. It is the formal equivalence. It is a word-for-word translation, right? But it's a tough read. I'm gonna just be honest. Thoueth, shalteth, notteth. I mean, it can just drive you a little crazy, honestly. I grew up younger seeing it, and it was tough, right? Because when I was growing up, there weren't other translations that were really that ahead of the schedule coming out. One of them that came out after that was in 1971, called the New American Standard Bible. And this was a very literal word-for-word translation. It came out in 1971. And it was really kind of the up-and-coming Bible of the time, set in the 70s. And it was grabbed on by especially youth. And it was very much, thought to be, the Bible of choice. As time went by, its popularity diminished a little bit because what came out was a very popular version called the NIV. The NIV, I remember the NIV. 1978, it was considered to be a wonderful translation, but not a word-for-word translation, but a thought-for-thought translation, right? So this is where a lot of people grabbed onto the NIV. Honestly, I had an NIV Bible for, 15 years, right? I mean, that was the Bible I used. But what ended up happening was people started seeing that translation and comparing it with the other translations that were coming out that were more word for word accurate. And it was disappointing to people going, Well, that's not what that verse says. You've translated it, you've changed the whole idea of it, you've changed the context. So the NIV was really super popular for a while, and then it waned in popularity because it wasn't considered to be as accurate, honestly, about very precise things in the Bible. And so, but I provide it to you as it's one of the more popular, right, still to this day. Then on the heels of that came the New King James Version. The New King James Version came out in 1982. Very good word for word translation, but just modern language. So instead of thee and thou and thith, it took all that out and put it in modern language. But it was waning in popularity because the NIV was the big deal, right? I will tell you today, the what they call the New King James Version, or the NKJV, is probably one of the more popular Bible versions, right? Um, because it's closest to the King James Version, which is considered the gold standard, but just with modern, updated language. To be honest, I switched over to the New King James Version probably, I don't know, 15 years ago, something, and haven't looked back. I mean, I still have my NIV and stuff, but I really like the accuracy of the New King James Version. So if you were to ask me, Tony, what would be the Bible that you would suggest, we look at having or reading? I personally would recommend the New King James Version. Do I think your life is going to somehow fundamentally fall apart if you use the NIV or the New American Standard? But no, no, no. But as you mature in your thinking and in your reading and in your study, accuracy is going to matter in the future. So that's why I'd encourage you to think about the New King James Version. But again, you're not going to go wrong with any of these versions. One of the popular ones came out in 1996 called the New Living Translation. Again, thought for thought translation versus word for word translation. So it sort of is the newer version of the NIV. Again, I'm not making fun of it. I'm not saying it's a bad Bible. These seven, I think you'd be fine with. Now, let's give you a cautionary tale to consider, though. There are Bible versions out there now that are either written or created by other religious groups, honestly, or groups that are wanting to rewrite the Bible to fit their storyline. Can I say it that way? I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings here. But let me just be candid. The Latter-day Saints, the Mormons, have their own book. It's called the Book of Mormon. We're going to cover it in one of our other classes. They will tell you, oh, no. We have the Bible. We have the Bible. Well, what they have is a version of the Bible that was rewritten by the person that started their religion, Joseph Smith. And Joseph Smith died before he could finish his rewriting of the Bible. And what he was doing is he was rewriting sections of the Bible to fit his Book of Mormon story. Now, my Mormon friends are going to be mad and upset that I've said that, and I'm sorry, but it's the truth. I'm just stating the truth. That's all I have to give you. I am not Mormon. I don't believe in what the Mormons teach, and we'll talk a little bit about that so that you know the difference. The Mormons are great at telling you, oh yeah, no, we have the same Jesus. Oh yeah. No, it's a different Jesus. Their Jesus is different than the Jesus of the Bible. They will say, oh, yeah, you have to understand that the Bible's still good, but it was translated wrong and Joseph was trying to fix it. But the Book of Mormon, it's not different than the Bible. It's just telling you about the story of Jesus in America. No. Guys, Jesus was born in Bethlehem. Jesus was a Jew. He was an Israeli. He was born a Jew. He lived like a Jew. He lived in the Jewish area of the Middle East, right? In Bethlehem, and yes, did he travel to Egypt? Yes, all these different things, but he never got on a whatever boat, plane, or whatever and came to America. There is no version of Jesus Christ in America that's accurate. But there are all kinds of books out there that talk about it. So you're going to have to research it. You're going to have to come up with your own conclusion on that. But what I'm sharing with you is there will be people that will spin a version of the story in order to support their belief system. And you know what? That's great. I'm not judging them. That's their choice. I don't believe in it, so that's okay. That they can have their belief. I'll have my belief. My concern is if what they're providing to new people or people that are trying to understand or discover things, if it leads you to a different conclusion or leads you off the right path, that could have an eternal consequence for you that I'm sorry you don't want to pay. I'm just being honest, right? So there are people out there that have rewritten the Bible in order to support homosexuality or transgenderism or pick bestiality, polygamy, pick whatever you want. There are people out there that have gone in and rewritten the Bible to their own version, right? And said, no, here's the new Bible. Here's the new gay Bible, or here's the new polygamy Bible, or here's the new. So, are there versions of the Bible that are absolutely polluted, bastardized, and whatever? Absolutely. Let's go back to my Harry Potter story. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. First book, right? Great book. Could I take the book and rewrite it and call him Harriet Piotr? And could I call it the Magician's Rock? And could I change the story? Yeah, I could. Would it still be called Harry Potter? That's the question you have to put in your own mind about the Bible. If someone takes something and rewrites it, then I guess it's no longer the Bible, right? It's a book they've rewritten, but it is not the Word of God, right? Please understand, the Word of God, the Bible, is words that God gave to humans to write. It's not a bunch of guys or gals sitting around going, this would be fun. Let's have a cocktail and let's write some stuff. No. All of the Bible was inspired by God for people to write because he wanted it written down, right? So if someone then takes that in an earthly way and alters it, please understand, it's no longer the Bible. It's a book. It's been rewritten. It's been bastardized. It's been whatever, but it's no longer the Bible. So when we talk about the Bible and we talk about versions, please understand the Bible that's going to be accurate to the gold standard of the King James Version, right, is going to be the versions that I've provided, the 7 that I've provided to you on this document. I'm sorry, it's not the Book of Mormon. I'm sorry, it's not the Mormons' rewrite of the King James Version, because they have that. It is not the Catholics' Bible, which has different number of books, different number of things. It's not the Jehovah Witness Watchtower Bible, right? Because they have a different one. So just because people have something they've written on their own and they want to call it the Bible, doesn't mean it's the Bible. Okay? And I know that can be really confusing, and I'm sorry. So I just please take a look at this information. Feel free to explore it, research it if you want. But if you're going to go buy a Bible, stick with one of these 7 versions, right, that are the most accurate to the gold standard of the King James. But not any of the thee and the thous and all that. Okay, one more piece on Bible fact. And it goes to what they call the publishing style. Okay? And I share this with you because if you go on to christianbooks.com or amazon.com or wherever you decide to consider, if you go to buy a Bible, oh my gosh, right? There's all these, the NIV, the KJ, the NKJV, the blah, blah, all these different things, right? All these different letters and acronyms. So hopefully this document will help you. But one of the other things that they ask is, well, what publishing style do you want? And so I wanted to cover for you the 6 most common publishing styles, and I will give you my 2 cents worth. So first one is called the Standard, straight Bible. Boom, boom, here it is, page 1, page 2, that's it. The second one is called the Red Letter Bible. You've probably even seen that if you're my age. Of course, that was the big deal because if it had red letter in it, that meant those were the words of Jesus. Younger people don't know that as much. They don't see that as much. It's less of an issue nowadays, but you can still get a red letter version Bible, which means any words of Jesus are in red font color. Okay. The third type is a reference Bible. Can be a very interesting version. So what happens in a reference Bible is you're reading along, and next to certain verses that you read will be a footnote that has another Bible verse or 2 referencing it, right? Explaining it or tying it together. A lot of people like that for cross references of the Bible. I used to like that, not so much anymore, just personally. I do what is called number 4, the number 4 on the list, which is a study Bible. Really like the study Bible. The study Bible provides little snippets within the Bible that help me understand certain verses or certain meanings. So if I read through something and I'm like, I don't understand, what are they saying, right? The study Bible gives me a little footnote or a little bit of an explanation or puts it in a context that I will understand. So I personally love the study Bible. So for me, well, Tony, what are you saying? So me, when I order a Bible, I order the New King James Version, right? Because that's just the one I like. I think it's the most accurate in modern language. And I do the study Bible. So that's what I order, a New King James Version study Bible. Ta-da! The 4th type is called a devotional Bible. It also has a lot more things that tie different verses and pull things together for you. A lot of people like it. It can be a little cluttersome for me, just personally, so I'm not a bigger fan. I like the study Bible. And then the 6th one is there are Bibles that are very much written and designed for children. And so that is a publishing style for children. So those are the 6 publishing styles, and that's really kind of our snapshot for tonight's class about facts of the Bible. If you want, I'll be doing it here just in a minute. We'll be doing the next class, the 2nd class, which is really giving you more details about the summary of the books of the Bible and different texts, and talking a little more about Old Testament, New Testament. So as we depart and round things out, we want to welcome everyone to our channel. Please understand that we want to provide as much as we can in the way of information for you, so that if you have a question, if you have a concern, please feel free to email us at turningtogod@outlook.com, and we will look at what your question is. And, if I have to go research it, I will, of course, and pull that together and send that out. So thank you so much. We appreciate you. We hope this is helpful. Please feel free to give us feedback as well if there's something that is, I'm talking too fast, I'm talking too slow, my hand movements driving you crazy, whatever. Um, you know, feel free to let me know, and we'll be happy to address the issues you bring up. So thank you. Have a wonderful day, and we will talk to you again. Bye bye.